Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video, we are going to be covering troubleshooting a system that is pulsing on the y-axis as well as potentially missing steps. And I'm really excited about this series because the more clients that I work with on a daily basis that are providing me videos, I'm going to ask for permission, as I did with John, who's a past client of mine. He's actually the client who purchased the Raptor system that I actually did the video series on my channel. He went through meticulously, built this robot and was having this issue with the system. He shot me some videos that are really clear. The audio is really good. It's real quiet in the room. And now we're going through, we analyzed the problem, he got it resolved. I'm going to cover all the videos in this actual video so you guys can see what troubleshooting a system is like, whether I'm there or not. I want you guys to understand that we have the technology to more or less, in a digital format at least, put me there to see what's going on. Because most of the time clients or potential clients will message me and say, hey, I'm having this problem with the system. And again, a one-line email doesn't tell me enough detail for me to do anything. And when I say that, I need explicit details. I'm essentially a mechanic working on a car without it in front of me. And as a contractor, as an engineer, I have to see what you've designed and how it's functioning so that I can see what my design is doing with it in conjunction. A lot of guys seem to forget that. John was excellent about this. He filmed everything. He did everything. Matter of fact, most of the time he was sending me videos on everything prior to me even requesting them, which is super helpful because he was very quiet. He let me listen to everything. And again, this is the key to success when we're dealing with support online with any vendor, whether it be me or anybody else. You guys have to take the accountability and say, okay, I'm going to have to inconvenience myself, do all this work so that I can get the best help. And again, I can't say enough for, number one, him letting us use this because it's a great learning tool. And then on top of that, him taking the time to invest and do this. Again, it's made the whole process much easier. And of course, he's much happier in the fact we were able to resolve the issue. So again, what you guys are seeing here right now, we're going to see, is that he has dual y-axis motors. Again, it's a slave axis format. Got one motor here, one motor there for my guys that are just tuning in, new to CNC. As he jogs this machine back and forth on the y-axis, you're going to find that it's pulsing. It pulses on this side of the gantry at first, and then on the opposite end, as it jogs back, it's going to pulse on this side. So I'm going to play the video now. You guys can see and hear exactly what I do. Okay. You see how short that video is? I mean, it's very, very short, but it's very concise. It tells me a lot. Okay? Just watching the motion. We do have linearity in some spots. We don't have it all the way through. You could hear what the machine was doing. It did not have that sweet sound that I'm looking for. When I say the sweet sound, you guys will get to hear that. And that's why I said videos are priceless in this genre of engineering, because troubleshooting engineering at this level, remember one thing. I can troubleshoot my controllers that I build much faster because I built it. When I have to troubleshoot someone's machine that they built, I have to figure out what they did before I can troubleshoot it. Now, when you think about that at an engineering level, my engineers out there, that changes everything. Because again, I have to go and ask questions. And again, until I know all the details, I work with what I hear and see first. My experience then comes in, and I should be able to isolate somewhere along that line. Now, we all saw exactly what just occurred with the machine. If this is a new build, and it is in this case, John just got done building this system. He's been building it for quite some time. You can see this is a lot of time invested here. It's a very nice, clean setup. If you guys are going to start automation at all with your system, I highly recommend you all get a piece of paper, preferably legal pad, and a pen. because you are going to begin the documentation process as any engineer would do. Now, whether or not you want to be an engineer or not, it's tough. And I'm going to tell you why it's tough. You've already become an engineer once you decided to build your own robot. So now I'm going to make you work like an engineer. And true engineers are always taking notes. And the reason we take notes is so that we document what works, what doesn't work through trial and error. Because, guys, I'll tell you what, theory only gets you so far. Okay, if theory worked, doctors wouldn't be interns. Okay, look at it from that perspective. Engineering is exactly the same. If you don't believe me in that, again, go talk to anybody that's done it for a long time. You're going to find out theory only gets you so far. I've seen so much crap on paper means nothing. Till we start running equipment, that's what you find, what works, what doesn't work. In this instance, we already saw what happened. If you guys, and in this case, John went back, and like I said, he already tore down the axis, but let's say you're new. Let's say this is your first time with your robot, just like it is with his. I highly recommend you have that piece of paper and pen ready. This way you can start documenting immediately. I jog the y-axis, and I'm getting pulsing. Don't panic at that point. I think a lot of guys do that. Don't do that. You're analyzing right now. We're trying to brainstorm. Okay, we've got this. We know this issue exists. Let's go on. Let's move on. We've got 2 other axes to check. Let's check motion. X is clean, meaning smooth. Z is clean and smooth. At that point, we know that it's time to continue to move on. We know that we've got everything linear as far as the other 2 remaining axes. However many axes naturally the system has, keep going until it's completed. But overall, what you're looking for is a baseline of consistency. When we troubleshoot, and the guys that are serious about learning, you're going to watch this whole video because it's going to be long, but it's long with a purpose. The whole purpose and the whole point of doing documentation is so we find that one word in engineering that finds us true happiness, and that's consistency. If you're trying to find what is right and what is wrong, we're looking for that one word, consistency, over and over again. If this problem is not consistent, like EMI, it becomes even more tedious. And that's why usually for EMI type analyzations, I charge more, because when I ask questions, if I don't get back the answers that are consistent, that means more time on my end to resolve the issue. Okay? Again, you know, in other fields, other contractors, they can find different areas of consistency, mainly because they have different tools. Well, I'm remote, so I'm not there with you guys to see all of the different options that you have. I, once again, have to go over the engineering factor. So once we start documenting and start seeing, okay, we've got this, like I said, we've isolated X, we've isolated the Z axis, and we see we've got this problem on the Y. At that point, after we've checked linearity on the X and the Z axis, and we've isolated it on the Y, we then start breaking down the mechanical aspect of what could be causing the problem. Now, this is where things get really interesting. We are not just looking, because a lot of times this is what happens. This is the point that I get messaged. Hey, guess what? I'm missing steps, or I'm not getting linearity. This is the point where you guys look at the system and say, what could be causing this problem? Some of you out there already know you should be tearing down this y-axis to see, because we have 2 motors, and they're both supposed to be working in synchronization, along with the lead screws. In this case, we don't have ball screws. We also have square axis linear bearings. All of this axis must be smooth. And when I say all of it, everything from the motor on this end, the coupler, all of the lead screw, all of the anti-backlash nut, which lead screws use, and also the linear bearing. Okay? Now, typically, what I get is I'll get something like a response like, hey, I've checked the axis, it's smooth. I'll sometimes get a picture or a short video of a guy pushing his axis and saying, everything is great, I can push it with my finger. Guess what? That's not always the case, guys. You have to do the work. Be accountable. You built the robot. You want it right. Take the time and make it right. And that means validating this axis. You're going to start from one end and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Now, you have 2 ways to work. And I'm going to tell you the two ways, okay? And this will prove to you and define to you, most of you, how long I've been doing this. You could do it the first time where we use as much detail as possible. That means before we assemble everything, we're going to go over everything in explicit detail, from the bearings, from the lead screws. And when I say that, explicit detail, I mean you're validating everything for precision. And again, it's much more tedious to do that way. Usually we buy from a vendor and we take it for granted and say, well, they wouldn't be selling it if it was garbage. We wouldn't trust them. We wouldn't spend our hard-earned money. And henceforth, we get it in stock and we just mount it to the machine. Well, guess what? Not always the case. Check everything. And when I say that, you got a choice. You could check the lead screws when they're on the machine, or you could check them on a piece of granite or a piece of glass to see if they're symmetrical as far as machining. If you find that they're warped, guess what? You're going to get unevenness on your bearings. Your loads are going to be pitched on your bearings. You may find that. Your anti-backlash nut, different tensions are going to cause different variables. We'll see that as we go through here. You guys got to hear how the system moved. I'm going to play it again briefly. But like I said, I hope many of you, and I think the guys that are real serious, that want to learn this stuff, that are really, really, really trying to get this down, there's a lot to learn from this series. So check it out. I'm going to play it again. And have a drink, excuse me. Okay, now we got to see exactly what was going on there, and now what we're going to do is he's already written everything down, and I'm going to show you now.
Vance, I fixed it.
Here we go. Listen to the difference in the machine.
Runs perfectly.
Now you can hear not only the excitement in his voice, he actually lets out a big yay at the end, which is awesome, but what it really is you hear the difference in tone of the machine. You can hear it. I mean, it's night and day difference. And again, he went through methodically and found it was an anti-backlash nut. He went and made some adjustments as far as backlash, and all of a sudden, everything came into play. He's all set. You can hear what she sounds like. You can see actually my system right there. You can also see the PLCM he's using. I mean, right now, you can hear a tremendous difference from this. Just let it play again. We'll play it over here.
Yes, I fixed it.
Okay, direct comparison from that to this. Listen to that. Even when it's not pulsing, listen to the difference in the motors. Okay. Now we'll come back.
Vance, I fixed it.
Tremendous difference.
Runs perfectly.
Tremendous difference in the linearity. And now you guys understand what you should be looking for. I mean, I cannot emphasize it enough. And I can tell you truthfully, John and I went back and forth over the weekend on a Sunday. He was very respectful of my time, and again, I try to be respectful with you guys because I realize some of you are weekend warriors and only have that time to really invest in your machine. Again, my goal is to get you guys operational. Knowing that this problem existed, it bothered me, and again, we went through everything and tested it. Now, like I said to you guys in the previous, when we covered the previous video, when you have your notes and your pen and paper there, documenting your troubleshooting, okay? Let's say this problem was not resolved, okay? Let's say the issue could be subjected to the potential of the controller being the issue, because a lot of guys instantly assume, well, you know what, it's not the actual chassis. I built it great. And John, you can see there's no doubt here. This man spent a lot of time building this robot. There's a lot of detail covered here. Very clean. And again, everything here is done with precision to the best of his ability, like many of you. The issue is that we want to isolate anything that could potentially give you guys false positives. The easiest way to isolate your controller giving you a false positive is to dismount your motors and run them off the machine prior to mounting them to the actual robot. And the reason I say that, if you test motion off the chassis, you've already confirmed it. You know that your motors are moving. Everything is set. They sound good. They sound smooth. You're set. If that's not the case and you're getting weird vibrations, you're getting, all kinds of issues with it off the chassis, it's sure in hell going to have it on, if not be more amplified. So again, we test every component individually. Bolting everything together out of excitement, usually it's that excitement that brings you 3 steps back. Take your time, move slowly, move methodically, write everything down that you're doing. And I promise you, it's a much smoother process. So after I addressed with John the issue that we first heard, I said, John, tell me, actually take the motors off the axis and run them. And you guys can hear what that sounds like. Now, you guys got to hear exactly what those motors sound like. That sounded perfect in comparison to when they were mounted on the chassis. So guess what? We've already eliminated the electronics being the issue, at least on that axis. So when you think in terms like that, and you see the actual method to use as far as breaking the axis up, breaking up the robot as a whole unit, and basically tearing it down as an individual drive on each individual axis, that's what's going to make you guys that much farther ahead. And in this case, of course, he's using a slave axis, so he's got both his motors on the Y off to see what they sound like. And you heard exactly what I did. Those sound perfect. There's no rubbing. There's no excess friction. The bearings sound good. Everything sounds perfect. Okay? When they were mounted to the chassis, when we watched that other video, we know we were getting pulsing effects. We know there was all kinds of things going on there as far as audibly that did not make sense. We also saw pitching slightly on the far left side and the right side as it jogged back and forth. So we know now electronics are isolated. The only other issue it could be is in the mechanics of the system. And once again, that's where he spent the time to achieve this.
Vince, I fixed it. Runs perfectly. Yay!
Well, you can definitely tell he was happy, and I don't blame him because, again, this was over at least a day of doing this. I don't know on his end how far he was doing it, but when he contacted me, it went basically all of Sunday. So I can tell you right now, he spent a lot of man hours going through this and trying to isolate the issue. And if this video helps at least one of you, just by you taking the time, like I said, watching the whole thing, investing about a half an hour of your time watching this and putting forward the principles that I'm telling you guys, formulating that process of writing everything down, you guys will be that much farther ahead. So again, if you contact a vendor, whether it be me or anybody else for support, you understand that we're up against the wall as far as trying to get information and details. I cannot break everything down as a detective, so to speak, without actually seeing the machine at a forensic level so that we can hear, see, and go over everything that's been done. In this particular instance, it was a little easier for me, actually a lot easier, and that's just putting it mildly, due to the fact that John asked me a lot of questions in this build. Of course, I built the system for him, but it makes it much easier when, again, the client or the potential client understands, look, this is not in my wheelhouse, I better ask just to make sure. And John always did that. You know, we've covered a lot of things. He's very knowledgeable. You can definitely see what he's achieved here, and what many of you have achieved is very similar in a lot of different instances. It's a matter of understanding and being humble enough to say, hey, you know what, I better ask, because I'd rather ask and do it right the first time than have to repair stuff. And again, it streamlines everything. Do not take it upon yourself to guesstimate or assume, because usually it makes an ass out of yourself. And I'm telling you that it saves you a lot of time to just ask the questions that need to be asked up front. If there is money associated with it, which again, and I say this openly, do not expect any vendor, myself included, to spend the amount of time it takes to go through a machine that we didn't build and analyze it for hour upon hour upon hour and not ask for anything in return. That's ridiculous. Now, again, every vendor is different. Every vendor works around their schedule. I can tell you right now, John will tell you, I work with him on Sunday, okay? When John bought his Raptor system, he spent a great deal of money with me, okay, because I built that system from scratch, and I told you guys I'm not the cheapest guy out there. But when he needed help on Sunday, I'm there. Now, that's my choice as a business owner. Everybody's different, but I'm going to tell you right now, I know in this industry, had it been another vendor, that wouldn't have been the case. And John was very respectful of my time. Some guys don't have that option. If John was, let's say, producing for profit that day and this machine went down, I want you guys to think about that and think about how important that is, not only to you, but to your business. And that's something that I feel you have to put a price on somewhere. You're either going to put a price on the fact that you could be really smart in the sense of the robot you're working with, and that means all facets, software, the controller, everything, and then you don't need a lot of money. Or if you have weak spots, you don't know the software, you need help with the hardware in terms of engineering, you need help with the electronics, you are going to find you need a deeper pocket, because you cannot expect any contractor, whether it be engineer, whether it be a plumber, whether it be a mechanic, you ain't going to roll in to get your, to get something done as far as electrical in your house from a contractor and expect that he's going to do that for free. Be realistic, guys. Be realistic. And that's why I'm saying these videos, they will save you an enormous amount of money if you watch them to the end and listen to what I'm saying and put what I'm saying to use. Try it. Nothing works unless you implement it. And it's not easy to do all the time. But I'm telling you right now, looking at the video in series, seeing this, and putting together that format, that process of, hey, I'm going to break down how I'm going to go through step by step by step and check my machine out. And you know what? Formulate that process on a 20-hour use basis. 10 to 20 hours of use, depending upon how often you use your machine. Go through that same documented process. Practice it. And I'm telling you right now, doing this becomes a lot quicker, and that's really how you learn your machine, because you're always finding that one word, which is consistency. So I'm going to look forward to doing some more videos series like this, because I feel this is something different. And this machine, like I said, is one of the best I've seen as far as the engineering, as far as the time investment, and overall to see it put together, to listen to it. You can hear the axis itself now. It sounds amazing. You can learn a lot from this, and you can implement this. And like I've told John, and he was very gracious as far as using the videos to help others, is that you guys save time. And that's the big thing. If you can save time using this, learn from someone else and save yourself some pain. Okay? So again, I hope this video has been helpful. I hope you guys learned something. If you guys do have questions or require consultations or quotes, message me direct at storm2313@gmail.com. You can also message me through my eDealer store, through eBay. I'll put links in the description. Of course, you'll see them in the beginning of the video and at the end. And again, I hope that this has helped at least one of you. Thank you all for support. Take care.